Hi, I'm Jenny Sauer. Welcome to End User Tools Presents. It's the Khapra Beetle trapping data collection using ArcGIS Field Maps. And I've got, as I said, a little poll up. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll asking you what mobile device you plan to use. And it looks like we've got a pretty significant amount of you using the iPhone over an iPad, and some of you not quite sure yet, and that's okay. So I'm going to make sure I will demonstrate using my iPad and give you that view, but I will also show you the iPhone just so you see the differences, which are minimal other than the tiny screen and really paying attention to being disconnected while you're collecting data. So first things first, this is the much anticipated brand new Khapra Beetle trapping app for 2023. It's brand new. Using Field Maps as the mobile application is not brand new. We've started using this application last year, but for some of you, the whole thing might be new. So you should have a mobile device, feel comfortable using that. You should have a pretty good comfort level with Field Maps application. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Survey protocol, you should have a pretty good notion of. Lisa Jackson is your National Operations Manager. A quick note, the warehouse beetle decoy traps data will not be recorded using this map. So this is not going to include warehouse beetle decoy traps. So just a quick note on that. And I want to give you, before we start, two resources. I'm going to throw two links in the chat window for you, and I'm going to give you a quick view of what I'd like you to know about. First off, this is the Mobile Data Collection Tools webpage. This is a public-facing APHIS webpage that we've got kind of buried a little bit, but if you have the link, you can find it easily. And this hosts all of our documentation and videos for training on mobile data collection. So this top half has three little links that are really important. The training events page you might have used, I'm going to click it to show you, might have used to find this training link. It's got all of our training for this year by pest. So here's Khapra Beetle, and there's the date, and you can go ahead and click the link here. So if you happen to need to take training on another pest program's data collection app, here it is. Starting in March, we've got office hours where you can just pop in and ask questions. And moving back one, we also have a general topics documents page, which hosts things like more information on field maps. You might have noticed also you were asked, in order to practice, there's a, let me get on in here. This page is loading kind of slow for me, but under field maps, we've got this access training maps job aid. And this was sent out, this link was sent out to you as part of your registration. So in order to use the training maps, you want to be in a group, and you can do that yourself using this job aid. Back one again. Pest program specific training documents. This lists all of our pest programs that have a mobile app. Again, there's Khapra Beetle, and we've got a user manual and a quick reference. The quick reference is really just that. It's one little page cheat sheet out there in the field if you want that. And the user manual goes into a lot more detail, including what some of these trap activity types might mean according to survey protocol. Although I will say once again, we try to stay out of survey protocol and point you in the direction of Lisa Jackson, but that information is here for you. Going back one last time, if I scroll to the bottom half, I've got a video gallery. And this training here today is being recorded and will give me about a week or so to get through ticketing and all of that stuff. It will show up here under pest programs as the category. It'll actually probably show up here along the top because the newest comes in at the top. But you can also search by title or keyword. You should be able to just put in Khapra Beetle or KhB and find this training. And I recommend it for those who missed it, but I recommend it for you all here today too. Once you get out there in the field and you start collecting data, it's a great idea to come back and review and make sure that you're doing things as was discussed in training. I know for me, sometimes I forget things, and then a little refresher is certainly due. So just be aware that that video will appear here under video gallery. The second link I gave you is a little quiz, and I'm giving it to you now because I don't care at all if you open it and take this quiz right along with us as we talk. It's really not meant to be a stressor or anything to add worry to your day. It's just giving you that one little extra knowledge check to help it sink in, and I want to make sure that you're getting the things that I'm laying down. So it helps me too as kind of a metric. They heard me, they got it, information was understood. And a nice thing about this is this third question, the email address. Type that in carefully because this is being shared with even external. Our state cooperators can take this little quiz. Type in this email address and you will get an automated email just saying that you completed this training. So this is how you get your little credit. Besides me saying thank you and I saw you were here, you'll get a little email that says you completed the training. So it's a nice little thing to pass on if your supervisor likes that, or for me, I like to have a nice little list of accomplishments every quarter that I hand off. Totally up to you, but you get that little email. So that's a handy thing about that. Again, feel free to keep it open if you want to, if you have the ability. No pressure here. It's meant to be easy and just kind of be a little knowledge check as we go. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? Well, this is kind of a quick little picture to help you understand keeping your eyes on the prize. He's looking at the top of the staircase, right? That little trophy. And as I said kind of in the outset, there's some foundational training that will help you before you really dig into what I'm going to talk about today, which is filling out that data form, data entry, that side of things. One, you'll want survey protocol to be kind of in your back pocket. Maybe that's that first light bulb step. You're going to want to have a device that you feel really comfortable with. And it looks like many of you are using an iPhone. So maybe that's your next step up, the checklist or something like that. You're going to want to feel pretty comfortable with ArcGIS Field Maps. It is new to some of us, and even if you used Field Maps as a mobile application last year, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and look at that training. We have a series of videos, we have a user guide. Just refresh yourself on how that app works. Maybe that's the third or fourth step up. And, you know, this training would be kind of like your little last step. Well, how do we use this app? How does this form, how does the data get recorded in this app? And that's what I will help you with today to bring you all the way up to these, gears shifting perfectly and maybe the eyes on the prize idea. One thing that I'm going to kind of warn you about today, I discovered the word for this little pathway that someone's taken straight to, their little special place. Some of us see maybe like on a hillside, an animal path. Sometimes we call it a deer path, depending on the animal. Maybe it's a sheep path, a pig path. But in this case, it's a human path that's been kind of worn into the grass there. And the term for it is when humans do it, it's called a desire path. And so today I'm here to kind of beg you to take the official path that's laid out rather than any shortcut. You might find shortcuts. And in fact, the most common is to try to collect data live rather than downloading a map to your device, especially when you have an iPhone, because you tend to depend on the cellular data connection. But I'm here just to beg you not to take that path. Take the path that I outlined for you. I'm going to give it a big X. Please don't take that little shortcut through. And so I'm just begging that you listen and try to hear me out and understand that maybe it takes a little bit of prep work, but it's really important and there's lots of reasons behind it in the end. So there might be some things that you figure out, but share them back to me and my team, the End User Tools team, and we'll let you know if it's okay. But otherwise, let's stay on the path today if we can. So what is the path? Well, I've got it kind of bullet pointed here for us. We're going to talk a little bit about that ArcGIS Field Maps app. We're going to talk about signing in just really quickly because it's really important how to sign into that app. We're going to talk about that disconnected workflow, how to maintain that without being live and causing problems, stay on the path kind of idea. We're going to go through the layers and the data form or forms actually as far as the Khapra Beetle app is kind of configured, and we'll have a little list of like reminders, which are kind of like warnings, like extra cautionary areas to be careful of. So that's what we're going to talk about. Just diving into field maps. There is, as I stated, a video series. I think it's 10 videos, probably would take you about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to go through them entirely, but you can take them one by one, little 5 minutes, 6 minutes here if you want. There's a written user guide that that video series follows. And I recommend, again, even if you feel pretty comfortable and confident, give it a review. It should have been completed as a prerequisite before you started before you got to this point, but if you have not completed that, please do. Again, that's on that mobile data collection tools website. You can find it there under that general documents area, or in the video section. Those videos are there for you too. Signing in. When you first sign into Field Maps, it kind of looks like this. You've got two options. You can sign in with ArcGIS Online, or you can sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And here, here at PPQ, we always pick sign in with GIS Enterprise. That is our protected, secured, FedRAMP moderate enterprise environment. And that's what we're going to pick so that we can enter this very sensitive data that contains PII. So we're going to pick sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And next up, what you'll get, well, the first time you sign in, you'll only have these two bottom options. You'll have specify a new URL or scan code, and you're going to go ahead and tap specify a new URL. And then the second time you come in, it'll kind of save it. And that's what I've got here up top. Give it a little arrow. So it's saved the previously typed in URL. So that first time you got to type it with care using that keyboard. And after that, you should have it listed here above. It'll save a few. So you can have, you know, a couple URLs here to choose from, depending on whether you use this training map, which we'll talk about in a second. So this is our official MRP USDA Enterprise URL. So ever after then, you just tap the appropriate URL and log right on in. But what we've got now is two URLs. So I'm showing you both here. Today, we're going to use the training one. Some of you might know Bob Ross, the painter. I used to give all these videos, and he used to say, anything that you're willing to practice, you can do. And so we like to give you the opportunity to practice. So we have in our official enterprise site, the official data collection app, but our team also always creates a training version of that app, and we host that then in a staging environment. So you might have already noticed, because I know you guys have eagle eyes, the differences between these two, but I'm going to give them a couple boxes here just to point out the difference in this URL. So our official site says maps.mrp.usda, and the training or practice or stage, that's what this -stg.mrp means, is our staging environment. So what's important about this for you all? Well, today we're going to use the training maps, and that's because that's where we can play, we can do demonstrations, we can practice, we can mess up in a training map. It's not real data. But what's important for you to note is you want to make sure that when you are entering official data, that it is being done in the official data collection app. So be sure that you're signed in using that official production, the mrp.usda, when you're collecting official data, and vice versa. Be sure that if you're just playing around or practicing, that you are signed into that stage.mrp environment and using a training map. Now, there is a couple ways that you can check this even when you're in a map. Our training maps, the title begins with training in all caps, says training. The background imagery is a dull gray. It's not pretty imagery. And we'll look at that today a little bit, because like I said, I'll be in the training version. So I can show you what that looks like and point it out. But be very careful that real data, official data, is entered in the official MRP URL, and you sign into the stage portal or stage environment for training or practice or play. So that's a big one for us to note. Of course, we want you to play around and get used to it and feel comfortable. So please do use that training map. And again, in order to find those training maps, you have to add yourself to that training group and have access. So that was that job aid that you got sent out in the link to follow the instructions in your registration. If you need help with that, again, reach out later and make sure you get access to these maps. But in the meantime, that's the big point, and that's a quiz question. Be sure that you're entering real data or official data in the official map, and play or training or practice in the stage environment. The disconnected mode workflow. That's kind of a big jumble of words just to say you're not connected to Wi-Fi while collecting data. And it breaks down to be really the important part is this office prep in the red box here. And again, remember, this is what I talked about with the desire path. Resist that desire to collect data well connected, however easy it might seem. It causes lots of problems down the road, and in fact, sometimes fails entirely, or we lose data, or it just doesn't connect. So remember, stay on the path here. This is the important part, especially for you iPhone users, where you might have the tendency to say, well, I'm connected, it's all good. Please stay on the path on this one. So also the ArcGIS Field Maps application is specifically designed to operate in disconnected mode. That is the purpose of it as a field application. And the way that it's done is an area of interest is downloaded to your device. They call it an offline map area while you're connected to Wi-Fi, a reliable Wi-Fi network. Maybe it's in the office. I said office, it could be somewhere else. And then the device is disconnected from the internet and field data collection is performed. And then at the end of the day, or when you get back to a reliable network connection, you reconnect. The data is synchronized with the online map that's hosted back in that enterprise portal, and done. Maybe you charge your device at the same time. I added that as a little bullet point there. But the really important steps is this preparation piece, and also this data sync at the end of the day. A daily data sync both pushes out your collected data and pulls in data that's been collected in that map area. So it keeps your map up to date. It makes connection back with that enterprise portal and just keeps that workflow in and out happening really well. So pay attention to this disconnected mode workflow. It's really important. Khapra Beetle data layers. This is kind of what the layers look like. There's a markup layer that's just a feature of field maps, the application itself on device, that markup layer. There's some kind of caveats there. It really only lives on your device as like a personal little notebook on the map. So we don't really recommend it. And what's really cool is the Khapra Beetle people, in all of their wisdom, have decided to add a map notes points layer, which kind of allows you to add a few things, information and hazards. So there's two layers here, the trap sites layer, where you will actively enter trap sites as data. There is a table connected to that trap sites layer, which allows you to return to the same site and record activities. And then there is a map notes points, which allows you to enter in a shared layer for all to see hazards of interest to surveyors or trappers, and information that might be important on that map. So let's talk about just kind of the trapping workflow. How does that work with these layers? Well, a basic trapping workflow, on the first visit, you place the trap, physically place a trap in a location, and that is a data entry on that main map layer, the trap sites 2023 layer, where you enter that that trap has been placed on that location. And then all future visits to that site are labeled as trap activities. That first placing a trap has a field in it called the install date, which sort of indicates that while you place the trap, you put that trap there and it was installed. That's an activity, but all future visits, there's a list of other trap activity types. And all trap sites initially on that first visit default to a status of being current initially. And then that status is being updated nightly by an automated script by the ArcGIS group. And every 14 days, that current status changes to due, from current to due, meaning due for a visit, due for an activity. And there is a somewhat complex survey protocol on what actions to perform every 14 days on these guys. I'll trust you to learn those and follow those guidelines as Lisa Jackson has shared them with you. I'm aware of them, but basically every 14 days, that trap site is going to pop over to its status being due, and the symbology is going to change. And I'll show you what that looks like too. So you can see on the map itself, just visually, which traps are current and which are due. And you'll have to decide what activity needs to happen there. There is a workflow that sometimes gets folks kind of tripped up on what it means and what to enter. It's the relocate workflow. Let's say you placed a trap and for whatever reason, that location isn't working and it needs to move to a different spot. Physically speaking, that's easy. You know, pick it up, put it somewhere. Maybe it's no good. Throw it away, get a new one out, and walk over somewhere and place it there. But as far as the data entry, if you think it through, probably makes plenty of sense, but I'm just going to talk you through it anyway. So the first thing you have to do is remove the trap, that original trap. So you're going to select that original spot on the map, and you're going to perform a data entry of a trap activity, which is remove the trap. So then officially, as far as data entry is concerned, that original trap has been removed. What kind of seems tricky to some people's minds is you expect if you enter remove that location on the map will disappear, and that is not the case. That symbol on the map will remain. That's correct, and that's really important to data capture. The whole history of that trap location is recorded and retained, with the last activity being remove. So that's correct. So you'll still see that trap symbol on the map, but the last activity that you just entered will say that it was removed. Then you go ahead and do that physical walk to the new spot, or however you travel, and you're going to go start from the beginning, place that trap. Every future visit to that location is an activity that you perform. So that's where it gets a little tricky, that remove. Be sure that you removed that original trap and then go ahead and place the new trap, and just understand that's not going to disappear for you. We've talked enough about it. Let's have a look at that data form for that layer trap sites, KhB trap sites 2023. I'm going to go ahead and share my camera screen here. And this is my PPQ iPad. It's charged to 100%. I'm connected to Wi-Fi, and I'm going to show you I'm going to work offline. So I've removed my cover. I really don't recommend removing the case, but it gives me a big glare when I'm trying to share like this with a camera. So again, forgive me. Don't do as I do as I say kind of idea. So make sure that if you have an OtterBox case that you keep it on. I've removed mine. I'm going to open Field Maps. And because I previously signed in and all of that, it just pops me right into the last map I was looking at. And this is Spongy Moth, and I'm going to go back and back again to that main maps page. And if I were in any doubt that I was not in stage and I'm going to play around a little bit, I would go to my profile, scroll up and sign out, and then go ahead and sign right back in again to the correct URL. But I know that I'm in the stage environment. And one really big tip, you might not see as many as I do, is all of these training maps. And you can see that they all begin with that word training as their title. Their little thumbnail picture has training along the top. So there's lots of hints to tell you right off the bat you are in your stage production, your stage portal. So it's safe to use these maps. I'm going to go ahead and search. And so I can just go ahead and type in KhB, and there's a training map. I can see that I have offline areas within this. This is just the map card. And I'm going to tap that map card to open it. And I've got two options here. I have an online map. That's the main map. And because I'm connected to Wi-Fi, remember, I can see this. If I wasn't connected to Wi-Fi, I wouldn't see this online map here, but I wanted you to see the difference. And some of you will see this if you're on your iPhone and connected. Secondly, I have on device. So I've taken the time to download an offline area, and I can do another area if I'd like. I can just on that main online map, add an offline area and go through that process and add an area and maybe name it something different. It could also cover an adjacent area if I want to keep those separate. But I do have one surrounding my house here. I'm in Windsor, Colorado, that is downloaded. You can see 4 days ago, and I'm just going to open that map. Now, right off the bat, you're seeing different symbols on the map. And so I'll kind of walk you through that, but let's look first along the top here at some of these icons. This is the sync icon, the arrow in and out. And if you don't see this, it means that you are in a live map. So you want to see this sync button. That means you're working offline. You have a synchronization option. And if I tap that, there's one more thing here. This auto sync ought to be off. So you want to only synchronize your data when you are connected and manually decide this is an appropriate time to do that. The worst thing that happens, one of our most common problems with syncing data, is an interrupted sync, and which can happen if your Wi-Fi is just not a great connection and gets interrupted. So make sure that this is off as it is here. Next we have, this is a layers icon, looks like a stack of papers, and these are the layers available. And this might look kind of like the slide. I had a little screenshot for you already, so you should know there's a markup layer on the device. That's just a Field Maps app kind of default thing that's there. And then we have a trap sites layer and a map notes points layer, and both of them are toggled to on. So since they're both on, what I can also do is show you in this 3-dot or ellipsis menu or overflow menu, the legend, which tells you all the symbols and what they mean on all of the layers that we have active. So if I didn't have one of these layers activated, I wouldn't see that here in the legend. But you can see we've got a current symbol, that blue square, there's one on the map. We've got a do symbol, and we have an inactive symbol. And then in the map notes points, we've got hazard or info. So in order to go ahead and just jump in, if we were to kind of picture that trapping workflow again, first placing a trap and then trap activities, in order to add a trap or start adding data, we just tap this add button. So I'm using the right words, I hope. So go ahead and tap that plus button. And now again, because all of my layers are active, I've got a choice between the layers. So I would like to add a trap site. And so I'm going to go ahead and tap that option. And now we have a data form. And I'm in my basement. I just want to point out I've got a red circle around my crosshairs. This GPS is not looking excellent. You can see we've got some messaging up here. GPS accuracy is not meeting the 30 feet required. It might get there as we talk. And in that case, this will change to blue, and so will this circle around my area. I'm going to move this away from me so you can see that blue dot is my location. And I'm going to place a point up here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a point. You would go ahead and use your GPS point, but I just want you to be able to see that symbol on the map. So I've moved the point up there. And the data form itself has questions for you to complete answers on just by tapping. Those that have the little star or asterisk are required, and some don't have that, means they're not required. So I'm going to go ahead and tap in the box, and site name, we're just playing, so I'm going to name it test. I could go ahead and hit next. If the next question asks for the keyboard, you'll get that option, or I could hit done, which closes the keyboard. I'm going to do the same thing once again. I'm not going to follow survey protocol. I know it, but I'm going to go ahead and fill something in. Facility type, let's say there's a farmer's market here. Agency is defaulted, but if I need to change that, I can go ahead and tap and choose something else. I'll say I'm another cooperator. You can see there's a little hint there for surveyor. Fill in your first and last names. Okay, so I won't say Jenny S. I'm going to say Jenny Sauer. And install date, this one gets me almost every time because sometimes I just scroll, and I'm a big fat finger kind of data enterer. If you accidentally pick a date outside of the correct date, or you might see it doesn't go back, there's no ability to pick outside of this year, you're kind of guarded there. But let's say I accidentally picked the wrong date. I can go ahead and tap today, and you see it bounced me right back to today. And then I can tap that field again to close that calendar. And then that keeps me from making a mistake and filling something out. Trap site comments, you can see there is no requirement there. There's no asterisk, but I'm going to fill in test. I like to kind of say that. And the current status is defaulted to current. As I said, that'll be updated every night with an automated script. And every 14 days, that will change to due. And then that due, or that kind of exclamation point in a yellow diamond, will be the new symbol for that. And trap type and lure is always the same. There it is. There's some also address details here that are required fields. So if you don't know them, ask Lisa Jackson what to do about that, but you should mostly be in a location where you would be able to find an address. I'm going to put in a fake one, 1234 street, city. You already know I'm in Windsor. and zip code. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you want to make sure that you've filled those in correctly. And then always scroll to the top, make sure that everything is filled in correctly and the point is there, and hit submit. Now, right away, you're going to see a difference along the top here with these icons. That sync button or icon now has a little dot on the arrow that goes out. And that's just a cool little thing saying, hey, you've got some things on your device that need to go out. When you're ready to sync, they're here. So that was our first step. We placed the trap. Secondly, remember, every future visit to that trap is an activity. And in order to get to that, what it's done is, because I've just entered this, it's kept it selected. See that little blue halo around it? But I want to show you what you would do from the start. So I'm going to exit out of that. And I'm going to go ahead and select that again on the map just by tapping it. You want to be careful if there's a lot of traps close by. You might want to zoom in or out, make sure you've selected the right one. You might check the trap ID to be sure it's the right trap that you're visiting. And then you either tap the link at the bottom or you scroll up on this data form until you find the link again, KhB trap activities. So we're looking for this link or the trap activities table. Tap that to open it. And in order to add a trap activity, you hit the add button. And then you're going to get another little data form for the trap activity itself. Again, same thing. You've got first and last name, follow the instructions, and survey protocol as you know it. Activity type. Here's where you might get that remove trap option. When you're relocating a trap, you might replace a lure, might be the most common. I'm going to do that today. Field sample collected, I'm going to say no. Again, survey protocol might dictate that you do that when you're doing this activity. I'm sorry if I do that wrong. And I'm just going to give a little comment here that it is a test. And I'm going to leave this activity date blank because I'd like to show you what happens if I hit submit. It says unable to submit, one attribute failed. And attribute is meaning one of these questions or fields over here. And you can see I got a little required that popped up in red as a hint. I can also tap view and it'll come into view if it's not, if you had scrolled up. So I'm going to go ahead and put today's date in, again today, and close. Check over my form. Everything looks good now. And now I'm going to hit submit. Now, let's say for whatever reason, we found that, okay, that was our first workflow. We placed the trap and we came back maybe 2 weeks later to service that trap, replace the lure. But let's say we discovered that something, I'm going to close these all out, something in another trap needs to be edited if it's incorrect, maybe the date even, or something like that. So in order to edit an existing trap, I'm going to go ahead and select it. And you might have already noticed this, but there's a little pencil here that usually means edit. You could also scroll up on it and go ahead and find edit there and tap that. And now that opens that data form up to editing. So I can change something on here if I wanted to. I'm going to change the facility type. Let's say it really was a storage unit and I got that wrong. And now I can go ahead and submit that as an edit. Let's say that you are placing multiple traps in the same location or around the same neighborhood that are all the same kind of information. You can also use this little bottom copy or scroll up. Once that trap is selected and that data form looks like something you could reuse, I don't recommend this all the time, but I've heard this comes up with Khapra Beetle where there's a lot of traps being placed the same time that might have a lot of similar fields in them. So let's say this is going to be our trap and we're going to place a few in a row here. We could go ahead and either hit that copy button or scroll up and do copy attributes. And now it's placing me back GPS wise where I am, but I can pull it out again and I'm going to place the point there. And you can see what it did is it copied all of these fields exactly as this first one here. And I would still recommend make sure all your fields really should have copied over and there isn't anything you should change, because this is the time to make sure that those edits are correct. Scroll up, make sure everything's cool, and hit submit. So if you find a need to reproduce all of the data in the data form, but in another trap location, that's how you might copy and make that happen again. All right, let's look at the the next layer on this list is that map nodes points. So I'm going to go right back and show you how that works. And then that ought to cover you, I think. Okay, so remember the layers button here, and we had two layers, the trap sites layer. We have placed a trap. We have performed an activity, ideally revisiting a couple weeks later. We have gone over what it looks like to copy, to edit. We have some different symbols here that show us we might need to go in and service this one, but we're not going to do that today. But in order to do that, now you know you can go ahead and select, hit that activity table and add that activity. Let's look at the map nodes points. So this layer is really meant to allow a shared knowledge. It's not an official survey data collection layer, but it's just information that might help a trapper in the field. And it's categorized either as information or hazard. One thing to note, just be really careful not to add notes to this layer that belong in the official trapping layer or activity table. If it should be a comment that's in our official data form, make sure to put that in the official data form. And secondly, remember that this is a shared layer. Others are going to see your notes, so make sure that it's appropriate what you're adding there. So let's go ahead and same thing as the other layer. In order to add that data, we go ahead and tap this add button. And let's say we're going to add, let's say information. And I'm just going to say it's a homeowner that's super nice and always gives us cookies. I don't know if that's appropriate at all. But I've got a neighbor, let's say right here. So I'm going to add that point. And because I picked info, it means it's not a hazard. This is just for your information. And again, we have the same hints here, first and last names, required fields or not. Once you're in here, let's see, it corrected my name. Keeps wanting to give me sauerkraut. Comments, this neighbor is super friendly. If I can type. Okay. And maybe that's not appropriate. And then the note date is today, and I'm going to close that and I'm going to submit it. Another example I've got here, and I'm going to close that form out, is you can see I've got a little question mark here that's red. That means it's a hazard. So if I select it, I can view it. So let's say I'm out here trapping and I'm like, what's this hazard? I kind of want to place a trap right there. Well, I told myself back early December, this is a footbridge, varying water levels and flow strength. Okay, maybe I don't place the trap too close to the water line then. So just as a total random example that I can think of, there's a hazard that I want to be paying attention to and sharing with another trapper. Quickly, a couple reminders. These are the important ones, especially for the little quiz you're taking, but when you're out in the field, don't forget, make sure to check which official portal you've signed into. If you are in a training map, do not collect official data, and vice versa. If you're an official map, make sure that you are collecting that official data. Be sure to use the disconnected mode. Make sure you're collecting data offline in a map that you've downloaded to your device, and daily data sync. And I would even say do this before you leave. It pulls all the data in the morning that maybe others synced later in the night before. So it just keeps your map up to date. And it also lets you know that your offline map is working. It gives you that one little test before you leave. Everything's working, you're all synced, you're ready to go. Be careful with your data collection. I know I don't really have to tell you all this, you're experts in the field, but it's just a good reminder. Always give that data form one more look over. I can't tell you how many times I've been embarrassed to find a mistake that I made that I just couldn't see the first time. So just be extra careful when you're entering data. That map notes layer, remember two things. Don't put official information in that map notes layer, and remember it's shared. So whatever you put in there, remember anyone could read it at any time. The markup layer, we prefer you don't use if you're using this map notes layer. It's just a default layer to this application itself. And the markup layer performs as like a diary. So it really only exists on your device as like your little notes to yourself. If the submit button fails, like you saw it fail, it usually means you missed a required field. I didn't point it out, but some of you might have noticed I also was able to, in my basement, eventually get GPS accuracy, but you should be looking for that always. Your points out in the field should have that little blue circle around the crosshairs, and you should not have warnings at the top, the red warnings that I pointed out earlier. So make sure that you have that GPS accuracy happening. Getting help. I might have thrown a whole lot of information at you today, but things still come up even if you're really taking it in. And so a little list of people to go to if you need help. The Khapra Beetle program is managed by Lisa Jackson as the National Operations Manager. So survey protocol things, questions about that 14-day activity schedule, what to do when, which activity to choose for what. There is a little table in the manual, but Lisa's your gal to ask questions and clarifications on that. iPad issues, I'll say iPhone issues as well. You want to open a ticket with CECIT. They support our devices. Portal access or field maps application things, anything about getting access to these maps, you want to start in this order. So you always start with your supervisor. Your supervisor is going to know some other tricks. Probably would also go to the local fields GIS specialist that supports your area, and may also email this WebGIS Connect email address for support, but start with your supervisor and work your way down this list. All things training on these apps is the end user tools group, and make sure you keep an eye on that mobile data collection tools webpage. That's where you'll find lots of stuff. I realize I forgot to show you the view from my iPhone, and so I'm going to do that real fast because I want you to see the difference. So here is my government iPhone. So you can see it's not as big of a screen, so that's why I like to demo on the iPad. But if I go ahead and open Field Maps, now something very different here. On my iPhone, I am signed into our official or our MRP.maps portal. So you might already notice right now you might have different maps, but there's no training happening here. So that's a big tip off there. Again, if I wasn't sure, I'd go to Profile, I'd scroll down and sign out, sign back into the correct enterprise portal. But I do have I have the official Khapra Beetle trapping field map app here. And again, I have offline areas that I've downloaded. So if I open this map card, I have, because I am connected to Wi-Fi, I have that view, I've got the online map, and I have my on-device map that I downloaded earlier. And again, if I'm going to collect data, I want to do that in this downloaded map area. If I need to create another one, I can do that, add offline area, same kind of view, just a smaller screen. And if I open it up, I should see this sync icon. That tells me that I'm in an offline map. And I can see I don't have anything to sync from this device, different from my iPad where I do have that little dot on the outgoing arrow. And if I go ahead and tap this plus sign, same thing. I've got all of my options here according to the layers that are enabled. And if I tap trap sites, I have a data form kind of shrunk down to the bottom half of the phone and the map on top. But if I want to see more of the form, I can drag that up and I can scroll here. So be very careful. I can, kind of move the map around, and I can open and close this much the same way, just not as much real estate. So I wanted to make sure I showed you that. So just as kind of a summary, we talked a lot about a lot of things, but about making yourself familiar with the Field Maps application, signing in to the proper enterprise portal, the disconnected workflow. We went over the layers and some of that trapping workflow and the data form and what they look like. We entered some data in the training map, so we were very careful to play in the training map. And then we went over some reminders, some things to be extra careful of. I just want to give you a reminder to please test yourself, take that quiz, just kind of make sure that you got down some of the things that we said here today. You'll get that email that confirms it. And now I just want to give you my information. I always like to stay accountable for this stuff. And if you have any questions, or if there's any way that I could show you things so that it was more clear to you, please reach out to me at any point. I don't know if we have Lisa Jackson on the call. I'm looking. I just wanted to check in. Yeah, we do. Lisa or Brianna, is there anything I missed or anything you'd like to see again?
No, I'm good, and I can answer what you said about the 14 days. For every 14 days, we're just looking for folks to look at the traps, make sure there's no samples in it, and then change your lure is at the 28 days, the 4-week mark. So that's what we're requiring on the active aspect of when you need to check your traps.
Thanks, Lisa. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't tell you how great it is to have the support of a nom like Lisa. So thank you for being here.
Sure.
Um, is there anything, Lisa, that you would like me to go into any further detail on, or
No,
anything I
no,
missed? Okay.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I operate off of a little bunch of scratchy notes on the side. So I'll just open it up. If anyone else present, was there anything unclear, or do you have any questions at all that you'd like to ask? And if you don't feel comfortable unmuting, which I'm okay with, you can raise your hand or you can go ahead and type it in the chat, and I'm just going to hang out for a little bit and I'm happy to answer those questions.
First off, I just wanted to say fantastic training as always.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I just had two things. I was just wondering if you could show the optional field for the contact info on the site page that exists. It's not required, but just so that people know that it exists. Um, and then I had one other thing, just that, yeah, thanks for showing how to copy the trap points, because that'll definitely come in handy if you have to enter the same point in multiple or in the same location and you have to enter the address multiple times. This will save you from doing that. The only thing that you need to make sure that you change is the trap ID, since every point needs a unique trap ID. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Brianna. Thanks for that. Those are two really good points. So I've opened up a data form as if I was placing a new trap, and I just, scroll down on the form so that you could see these address details are required fields. But let's say you filled that out, you can actually kind of reduce or minimize that group of questions. And then what Brianna was talking about is this optional contact information, and that behaves the same way. It's a little group of questions. So if I tap it, it opens it, and then I can scroll up, and it's got contact type, name, phone number, email, and notes. So that's an optional set of questions that are just defaulted to being kind of closed, but you can open them and add things to it. And again, that copy feature, I'm going to cancel this. So remember, we copied, this one was the original, and we copied it and made this trap site. So right now I didn't do it. I did not update it. They both say for site name and trap ID test 1. So in fact, I'm just, as a point of importance, I'm going to go ahead and edit that so that it says 4. I could be wrong about where I am on these test points, but so now this one says 4. I'm going to hit submit. And then I'm going to select this one and check my work. So this one says trap ID is test 1. This one says trap ID is test 4. So that would be important. I'd say make sure maybe the site name might be different. Maybe something else might be different. If you're using copy, it's a little dangerous, but I can see how useful it might be with Khapra Beetle. So do be careful to be sure that your copied feature is updated according to its information. There might be other fields you need to pay attention to too. I thought I saw another hand, but maybe it went down. And then I do have a question in the chat. To be working offline, do we have to actually disconnect the phone's data, or is it only turning off the auto sync? That's a great question, Grace. Ideally, to be safe, my advice and what I would do in the field would be to disconnect the phone's data, just because our iPhones are brilliant machines and they love to help us out and try to connect. But in theory, technically speaking, you don't have to connect your phone's data as long as you're working in an offline map. And that's why I did that today for both the iPad and the iPhone. I'm working well connected to Wi-Fi. I am connected. So if I kind of scroll down, I've got Wi-Fi on and Bluetooth on even. I don't even need any of this. But I'm not using the Wi-Fi except for if I were to sync. So if I go back, the map that I'm in is an offline map. So as long as I stay in the offline map rather than the online map, technically speaking, you don't have to disconnect. Michael says, my iPhone does not have the blue plus sign to add info in the data fields. This most likely means you don't have the right, you have only a viewer role in the enterprise portal, and you'll need to talk to your supervisor about getting an editor's or field worker role, because it allows you to view it but not add or edit data. So if you don't see this plus sign, it means you need to talk to your supervisor about upgrading your role in that portal. And I will need another device. No, that's all about your role, Michael. Thanks, that's a good question. Very good one.
I forgot there's one more unique field in the Khapra Beetle app. When you put you did collect a sample, if you put yes, then it opens a field ID. So if you say that you collected a sample and hit yes, it'll open another field that you have to answer, and that becomes required. So yeah, I just figured while you're still showing
Yeah,
stuff.
no, that's great. And so that's only in the activities table, not that main data form.
Yeah.
So that's why I selected an existing trap and acted like I was adding an activity. But yeah, so if I said yes, then we see field sample ID. If I change that to no, that field goes away. Yeah, that's a little cool little feature. So you don't have to answer questions that don't apply. Thanks, Brianna. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you being here, listening ears on, and active questions. And thanks again to Lisa and Brianna both for your support on this app. Again, this video will show up in that video gallery, and I highly encourage you to refresh yourselves on that. When you get to, a couple weeks in or something, take another look, make sure that you're doing all of this according to the way this workflow is supposed to go. And please feel free to reach out. Again, I'll put my information up here, but if there's anything that we could do any better or different so that it kind of sinks in better, please let us know. We want to hear that. Thanks and good luck out there, everyone.